Millions of tons of asbestos have been used in hundreds of thousands of buildings like these across the country, in schools, in hospitals, and in commercial buildings. Deteriorating and damaged asbestos can cause exposures to building occupants and construction workers alike. Because of this problem, there's a growing need to remove asbestos from schools and buildings. The sheet metal industry has been in the forefront of meeting this critical problem. It has consistently taken a leadership role in the nation in training workers in the safe and proper removal of this health hazard. This tape is one of a series prepared by the National Training Fund with assistance from OSHA to accompany the Asbestos Abatement, Removal, and Disposal Training Program, often called the AARD Training Program. It'll focus on some of the details and practices that are sometimes hard to demonstrate during hands-on training. The tape shows an actual on-site removal. The procedures are divided into 3 sections: job preparation, removal, and cleanup. Job preparation and cleanup are just as important as the actual removal itself. Asbestos demands respect. It's essential that everyone pay attention and be careful every step of the way through all phases of the job. Lives may depend on it. Let's start with job preparation. Before the actual job begins, the work area must be evaluated for hazardous conditions. This is done by checking the area for signs of debris and by taking pre-job air samples. On this particular job, the area was found to be clean and protective gear wasn't needed during the job preparation steps. If it had been contaminated, workers would have had to suit up in protective gear from the very beginning. The next step is to survey the work area and prepare a list of damage that already exists. This assures that responsibility for these problems is clear before the job begins. Furniture and other objects are then removed from the work area. Signs containing the OSHA-required warning are placed at all boundaries of the regulated area to warn building occupants and other workers of the asbestos project. A pre-job crew meeting is important to explain any unique problems or work specifications associated with a given job. For example, on this job, the asbestos was applied to a scratch coat surface, so the entire ceiling structure had to be taken down.
The lights have to come off, wiped, wrapped in poly, I'm going to store them. When we're gross removal, we'll drop the temp pipe fittings with the ceiling to get it all done in one action.
Critical barrier plastic is put up first with 6mm plastic. It's used primarily to cover openings like doorways and windows. The ventilation system must be turned off at this time. All air vents leading in and out of the room must also be covered. Any fixtures that can't be removed should also be covered.
Okay.
Including electrical outlets and floor plugs. Now we're ready to lay the first layer of poly on the floor. On this job, the poly is secured to the wall by glue and tape. The poly is extended up the wall about a foot to prevent leaking of water. The glue should be used carefully as it has its own hazards. The corners should be neatly folded, glued, and taped. The floor seams should overlap. Glue and tape are used to secure the poly to the wall. In some cases, it's necessary to use furring strips for further support. The bottom overlaps the floor piece and is neatly secured. After the first layer is complete, we're ready for the second layer of poly.
All right, we'll take it to that end. Brush it. Oh yeah, I will get once we get...
All seams should overlap. And corners should be neatly secured. On this particular job, it was important to get the second layer of poly as close to the ceiling as possible without disturbing the asbestos. To prevent billowing, holes are cut in the poly so that glue and tape can be used to secure the poly to the wall. This must be done carefully to make sure the tape patch is as leak-proof as possible. Once the workplace is secured, a decontamination system for entering and exiting the job site must be constructed. This multi-chambered system is designed to prevent stray asbestos fibers from leaving the work area to cause exposures to workers and building occupants. It consists of 3 basic rooms: a clean room, a shower room, and a dirty or equipment room. At this job site, the crew has to frame a part of the clean room outside the building, where the workers get changed. The decon unit often must be customized to fit the space available. However, the order of the rooms must be the same. In addition to this basic structure, it's increasingly common to include airlocks between each of the rooms. A portable shower unit is brought in as part of the shower room. To operate the shower, there has to be access to water. Sometimes the water has to be secured over very long distances.
Our water supply is coming from the left-hand side of the building over here, so we have to have our hose running here through that, and then we're going to seal it around with tape to come in to this fixture right here.
You can work from that side, it's fine.
The shower has a collection system. The water is suctioned through a pump and filtered.
We'll take this scrap piece. Now we need 3 flaps, 3 airlocks, and they've got an alternate. So what I want you to do is have plenty of overhang, so this is nice and perpendicular. 1 flap is going to be tacked here to the right-hand side, and they're going to have an arrow to open the door from the left. Then the other flap is going to alternate on the other side, and it's going to be like a maze.
Right.
And the other one is going to be tacked. They're all going to be tacked from the ceiling. The other one's going to come down here, and it's going to open from the right. And since this is double, we could utilize both pieces. Then you're going to cut another piece to size, thus make the 3rd flap.
Okay.
3 alternating flaps are used to create an effective barrier between all the chambers. Arrows are used to indicate open ends of the flaps. You should pass through the flaps one at a time. Do not pass through all 3 flaps at once, as demonstrated here. That defeats the purpose of the flaps. Weave through the flaps. The clean room should also contain equipment such as fire extinguishers, battery chargers, and first aid kits, as well as regulations, daily air sampling results, and emergency phone numbers. Additional setup is needed when Type C respirators are used. The compressor is set up outside the work area. Fresh air is pumped in through the hose into a manifold located in the dirty room. There, the worker's air supply is hooked in. An alarm is set to warn if there's too much carbon monoxide going into the worker's air supply. Now let's take up the final preparation before removal. Before starting the active removal, all supplies that are necessary should be brought into the workplace. Then the area is given a final inspection to make sure all the seams are secure. When this test is completed, the area is ready for removal. The negative air unit is connected and turned on. The unit should be vented to the outside. The plastic should be checked after the negative air unit has been run overnight. This gives a good test of how well the plastic is attached. All repairs should be made before the start of active removal. A final check should be made that all electricity to the work area is turned off. It's best to lock out the panel. Temporary power is then brought in. Now let's take up removal. After entering the clean room, the worker takes off all street clothing. Then he puts on disposable protective clothing. The powered air purifying respirator, or PAPR, should be checked out prior to use. Proper flow and battery charge is important. Remember, the respirator is the final barrier between the asbestos fibers and your lungs. They should always be in top working condition. Gloves are not absolutely necessary, but are worn in some jobs. You'll exit the clean room through the shower, into the dirty room where the shoes are put on. Wetting down the asbestos is very important. This asbestos was very difficult to saturate. Furthermore, the asbestos was attached to a rough plaster substrate. This is called brown coat or scratch coat. Unlike a smooth surface, it's difficult to clean to a no visible dust condition. Notice how difficult it was to thoroughly wet the sealing material. The scraping you see taking place is done for the video, but the actual abatement plan called for taking down the entire ceiling, brown coat and all. This is one of the more difficult types of abatement jobs. Bag the waste frequently. Never fill the bag more than halfway full. Remember, the bags can be heavy from the soaked up water, and you need to leave room for the gooseneck seal. That gooseneck seal reduces the chance that dust will be forced out of the bag when it's moved around. An added precaution is to use the high-efficiency particulate air vacuum, also known as a HEPA vacuum, to suction off the excess air when sealing the bag. The bags will be stored in the corner for removal later. Now let's take up the proper exiting procedures. If your disposable suit is heavily contaminated, you should clean or HEPA vacuum it off before entering the dirty room. The main thing to remember is that only the disposable suit and extra work clothes come off in the dirty room. Remember, the respirator must be left on at all times. The disposable suits go in a waste bag. Then you can enter the shower. Showers are mandatory. A PAPR is a little awkward because the battery pack and motor on most must not get extremely wet. You have to hold it away from the shower stream. This means that the motor and battery must be carefully wet wiped in the dirty room before the shower. Masks tend to get a lot of asbestos on them, and careful washing is needed before the mask is removed. A hook for hanging up the unit is helpful. Type C masks are straightforward. The mask is worn right into the shower and is then cleaned. Negative pressure masks, such as this half mask, are also worn right into the shower. The filters are then removed and disposed of. Hair and body must be carefully cleaned. The jewelry this man is wearing should not be worn. The clean respirator is then brought with you into the clean room. Now let's look at the cleanup procedures. After gross and secondary removal is complete, the waste bags must be removed before plastic can be taken down. Waste bags are removed through either a separate waste loadout area or through the worker decon unit. The job is done by a team of 2 workers. The worker on the dirty side puts the bag in the shower, then washes it off and wipes it clean. The bag is then put in a new bag while still in the shower room and is then resealed. At this point, the worker on the clean side removes the bag. Cleanup is a very important part of an abatement job. The poly must be cleaned carefully by wet wiping. HEPA vacuums are also used to remove debris. The substrate and poly surfaces are then given an inspection for any signs of visible dust. A lockdown sealer is then sprayed on the substrate and poly to encapsulate any remaining non-visible asbestos. The top layer of poly is then carefully removed and bagged. The bottom layer is then cleaned and removed. Critical barriers must remain in place until after the final air sampling. All that remains is the final clearing of the uncovered walls and floors. Notice that the critical barriers are still in place. After a second inspection for visible dust, aggressive clearance air samples are taken. Once the job passes, the critical barriers and decon unit can be taken down. In this presentation, you've seen how to properly perform site preparation, removal, and the cleanup of asbestos. Your understanding of these procedures will enable you to remove this menace safely and effectively now and in the future.